Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got to talk about what's going on with James Gunn and the DC Universe, or if there is even a DC Universe still that James Gunn is running, because it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdy are running it, and he's just there to try to, guide some of the ships into the harbor, which he's done not such a great job with, especially if you look at what's coming in the future and what we've already seen so far. In fact, I would say that the headline here is 100% valid. James Gunn admits that Superman and Lex Luthor in Man of Tomorrow are based on himself. Another self-insert. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, double check you're still subscribed to the channel. If not, this is the time to do so. It will help me out immensely. It'll help us grow, and well, it creates something called engagement. So hit the thumbs up button while you're down there as well. If you haven't already, make sure you're still subscribed. You have turned on the notification bell and you look at everything. Only about 20% of you are fully notified. I want to make sure that gets to 100%. So double check and let's get moving on. James Gunn admits that Superman and Lex Luthor in Man of Tomorrow are based on himself. Again, another super insert. This guy loves self-inserting. Again, that's not unusual. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy, another super inserter, super self-inserter. That's the way I should probably phrase it. Let's take a look at the story from Trevor Denning over at That Park Place and the fact that maybe this isn't the best story in the world. As the co-chairman and co-CEO of DC Studios, James Gunn is responsible for setting the course of the DC Universe, DCU. Warner Brothers' latest attempt to bring some of the comics' most iconic characters to life on screen. He's also the writer and director of Man of Tomorrow, the sequel to last summer's Superman, which, as we all know, and we won't try to fake, didn't exactly set the box office on fire. If anything, it broke even, and some people are claiming that it lost money. Regardless of how you feel about the film, some liked it, some didn't. It didn't really get to that $1 billion threshold that makes a tentpole costing over $200 million something successful. And so we've got a sequel to look forward to. Maybe. And we've got a Supergirl, a drunk Supergirl follow-up film that is on the horizon set for later this summer. But remarks that he made in a recent interview, Gunn also seems to have mentally cast himself in the role of Superman and Lex Luthor, which could explain the schizophrenic script and presentation that we got in the first Superman film. He goes into detail about how he sees Superman and how he approached the next chapter, or how he's approaching the next chapter of the Superman saga. And frankly, I'm not all that excited. I think that following Tom King's lead in the modern comics is the worst decision-making process anybody could do, but here we are. At its core, it's about Clark and Lex, Gunn said. I relate to both of them. I relate to Lex's ambition and obsession, minus the murderer, and I relate to Superman's belief in people, his Midwestern values. They're two sides of me. Frankly, I don't believe him. He's never demonstrated the Midwestern values, especially in the presentation of a lot of things recently, whether it be Peacemaker or the Creature Commandos show. He doesn't have or express those values in a healthy and normal way that you would expect would give a presentation out there that everybody can consume. And trust me, nothing from Peacemaker or Creature Commandos can be consumed by everyone, at least not in a good way. The issue, as some have pointed out, is that Superman is a pop culture icon whose history runs far deeper than any one filmmaker's personal experience. So it begs the question, do fans want a Superman that Gunn can relate to, or was the character always intended to be something more? Well, I think that question's easily answered. Superman was a modern Boy Scout and out of time. Someone who not only maybe couldn't exist in the modern world in a way that most people would understand, and at the same time, a superhero alien that just had humanity's best interests in mind, which is a strange dichotomy. It's the heads and tails side of the coin, which Gunn doesn't ever seem to understand, at least not anything I've seen that he's done. From mythic hero to that big lug. And that's the problem. When the character of Superman was created in the early 1930s, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster had a wide variety of inspirations. Many have noted the parallels to the biblical Moses, who was sent away as a baby to be raised by others and ultimately became the savior of his own people. Siegel and Shuster also mentioned Samson and Hercules for giving them the idea of a fantastically strong man who fought for and defended the oppressed. Kind of the hero we need today, correct? But not to James Gunn, at least not in his presentation so far. Another clear influence was Edgar Rice Burroughs' pulp hero, John Carter, who was a sort of inverted proto-Superman. Carter was sent to Mars, where the lower gravity, he was able to jump and leap over tall buildings, and had super strength. There, he too served as a sort of liberator. The initials JC suggest that Burroughs was thinking of Jesus Christ, whose iconography later Superman storytellers have incorporated. Now, I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school. You probably knew all of this, especially you fans of John Carter. ERB did such an extraordinary job with that character that it was only Disney who could destroy it. And destroy it they did. The core idea of Superman has always traditionally been aspirational. As Jor-El says in the 1978 film, they can be a great people, Kal-El. They wish to be. They only lack the light to show the way. For this reason, above all, their capacity for good, I have sent them, you, my only son. Parallels not cast aside, would show you exactly where the heart of this character is headed, just by those famous statements in probably the greatest Superman movie ever made. When speaking of Superman, Gunn says this guy isn't perfect, even though he's Superman. He's really just trying to do his best. He's good-natured, he's loving, and he sees the best in everyone. He later goes on to describe Superman as that big lug of a superhero, which is far too simplistic for me. How about you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Now, by framing Superman primarily as his own self-identification, Gunn risks diminishing what has allowed the character to endure for nearly a century. In fact, coming up against copyright, which they're about to lose in the very near future. Superman was always intended to be mythic, a symbolic figure meant to represent ideals larger than any single creator or audience, which, again, in the comic book arts, makes a lot of sense as you get various iterations of each of these heroes with largely the same characteristics, traits, and abilities, but sometimes vastly different personalities. Grounding Superman and the DCU seems to be the direction everything is going. Ultimately, by reducing Superman to the kind of person Gunn feels he and his audience already are, Gunn is failing to challenge anyone. The stories he's likely to tell in the DCU may no longer center on larger-than-life aspirational figures, but instead becoming reflections of himself and his audience, and of course Tom King. It's undoubtedly a comfortable position from which to write, but at the same time, disappointing to somebody like me. And maybe even you. I added that last little bit myself. Fans seem to want to see the blatantly obvious. Superman in 1978 because they wanted to believe a man could fly. In bringing Superman down to his own level, Gunn may be grounding the DCU before it ever truly takes flight. And my argument is, he already did. He started from not Superman, but someplace in the past. Peacemaker, which he had already created in his own image, and of course, creature commandos from all of his various perversions, which, again, don't fit all that well into Superman's DCU or any kind of Justice League. So, with all of that being said, where do you fall? Let me know your thoughts around James Gunn being a self-insert in both Superman and Lex Luthor for James Gunn. Let me know if that's a good idea. Let me know if it's his myopic approach and non-aspirational approach is something that would appeal to you. Or are you looking for a little bit more superhuman than Gunn seems comfortable with showing us? Once again, I'll read your comments down below. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya! But probably not at this movie or Supergirl. Yikes.